Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Andrew Biberman Experience. This is the third podcast, and we have some special guest interviews prepared. The thing with these guest interviews, I'm just going to tell you right now, is they're spontaneous. There's nothing about the show that's going to be hidden. I'll just tell you right now. I'm trying to get my friends right now to do it. A lot of people are home. Everyone is home. It's a quarantine, and that means that we have the ability to just get anyone. This morning, guys, I've been very unproductive. I started my day watching an interview with Jimmy Fallon and Joaquin Phoenix. And you know why? Because I thought it was actually a really good tactic in studying interviews. Because there's plenty of good celebrity interviews out there. Just look at any Craig Ferguson interview. I've been doing this a lot during quarantine, watching these old interviews. And I say Craig Ferguson because it's old, and also a lot of his humor doesn't seem like it would get across today. Not get across, just be accepted. It's so dirty and hilarious. It's awesome. But I just don't see it getting across today. And also, when you see the Jimmy Fallon interview, his humor is something I want to talk about a lot on the show. But I really like what he did with the Joaquin Phoenix interview because he kind of turned it around from something that was cartoonish, something that he usually does. He usually does these cartoonish interviews, and he made that really a good interview. So that was a great one. I loved watching that Jimmy Fallon interview and studying it. But yeah, aside from that, I've been pretty unproductive. I try to usually watch a movie a day, and that's just hasn't been happening during quarantine. I did the Bond series. Talk about that another time. We can go a little bit into detail with it, but watch some of the Bond films or all of them, and I really just want to go back into them because it was like a blur. You watch them all, it's total blur. And after that, I really can't watch anything else. I'm actually so into this whole world. That happens, after you watch the Marvel films. You really like love them. That's how I felt. When I watched Endgame, I didn't quite like it. I I love just watching a whole series. You get attached to a series, and then when it ends, you feel a certain way. Once Endgame happened, I felt an uncertain way, and I still um I feel like that was a part of my childhood, and I'm 18. I'm turning 19 in less than 30 days. And I just look at that like that was a big part of my growing up. And I watched Endgame until I was 17 when so it was really, a big part of me growing up. My birthday was a month after that movie. So it's like, hey, all right, these Avengers movies are done, kid. Now look at the real world. And it's actually funny because once I got to college and I looked at real movies, like what's a real movie, and that's a thing. I've just suddenly, slowly started to appreciate, I guess, what it is to make, how hard it is to make a movie. And I look at those Avengers movies and I actually appreciate, how Joss Whedon can do that. And we can criticize him for Justice League. We can criticize the flaws at it, but it takes a passionate filmmaker. I hear my dog. Jeter. Anyway, he's still going. It takes a passionate filmmaker to make a movie like the Avengers, to make that come together. And also that's why I look at Jon Favreau. We're just gonna ignore him now. I look at Jon Favreau like he's one of the greats. The Mandalorian is, it's hard to ignore. My neighbor is riding by on her bike. This is quarantine, guys. Just constant noise because people are outside, even though they're supposed to be inside. It's ridiculous, the irony. Like, just let everyone out, please. They're going to reopen theaters for Tenet, and no one's going to see it. And Birds of Prey and Bad Boys for Life are going to be the highest grossing movies of the year. So, let's get back to what I was saying. The Mandalorian is, without a doubt, a huge series, and Jon Favreau got to helm that. It's basic, it's generic, and I'm going to tell you honestly right now, I've only seen 3 episodes. I look at it like it's a really tightly knit, high quality in terms of the technical part of it. It looks great. It's like Star Trek, the original series. It feels like a Star Trek series more, and I mean I say that just because it's more adventures in space per Star Wars. Star Wars has never been an episodic series. It's always been films. I mean, if you look at it, there's been the Clone Wars, which I never watched that. That's an animated series. It's very popular, but what's really popular is these. What's really popular is the movies. They're bigger than the series. So I've just stuck with watching those, and when I saw Rise of the Skywalker, I was disappointed. That was just a poor conclusion. But yeah, I've never really seen the series. So just to get back on track and talk about Joss Whedon, it's just showing it takes a lot of passion to do this, and you can clearly see the passion kind of diffusing in a movie like Rise of the Skywalker. But it still takes a lot to make a movie like this. I mean, just if you're gonna make something, you have to have full control, and you have to realize you're making it for an audience who's gonna watch it and care and judge this for a while, for years to come. I mean, if you're Star Wars, your movie will be judged for years to come. Look at The Last Jedi, which was directed by Rian Johnson. It was universally praised by many people, but also loathed. I am somewhere in the middle with The Last Jedi, and again, I'm not trying to go too much on it. I'm just trying to say that it had a longer pace. It had humor, but it didn't really build up to anything. But that's not Rian Johnson's fault. That's just the Star Wars saga's fault for failing us with a great third movie. We could talk all about this one. We could rewatch Rise of the Skywalker, and I actually plan on doing that. You know, watching Rise of the Skywalker, whole thing, and recording it, and just maybe with a guest star, it would be entertaining to see. And now we have a gardener going off. I'm going to have to shut my window. So we're going to hold for that. And then we're going to come back and continue talking about franchises and artistry. Let's just take a 1 second break for this window shutting. Okay, we shut the window. So let's talk about, again, the genericness and how that just ties into artistry. Genericness just comes from trying to make a brand popular. Iron Man came out in 2008, and it was easily one of the most popular films when it came out. It re it just rejuvenated the superhero genre. X-Men did that, and to be fair, I was a kid when this happened, and I was only there to really see the commercials for Iron Man and get scared. I was actually frightened by seeing the opening scene somehow. I think it was online in a YouTube clip, and this was the early days of YouTube, and I saw Tony Stark in a vehicle in Iraq, a military vehicle being blown apart, and him being captured by terrorists. And I was honestly a sensitive kid, still, and I still am. I'm honestly still sensitive in some ways, but when it came to movie watching, I could not watch anything. I could not just handle really small scenes that really aren't that sad, that I watch them now and they have a lot of humor in them. I just was too afraid to watch them. I would click it off, or I would just not watch the film. I watched the Iron Man films the year the Avengers came out. I watched them all around the summer, and then when the Avengers came directly to on demand, we watched that, and we watched it for free. It was on one of the channels, and we have the network, Stars, AMC, all that, and we would just tape it and watch it with commercials. So those films had a lot of originality to them. I mean, look at Iron Man. It was just completely built from scratch and fun, and Jon Favreau injected a ton of humor, which is what you're supposed to do with that character. Tony Stark is a lot of fun. He just plays around a lot. Martin Scorsese said Marvel movies aren't cinema, and that just is a whole conversation of its own. But why did he say that? He has a very fair point, and after Endgame, he actually kind of proved my point, because I'm someone who was really opposed to that movie. I said, I don't like Endgame. I don't think it's a great film. I think it just disappointed me on a lot of levels that I don't want to talk about here, because what I do want to say is this. I think the Russo brothers did a very good job at satisfying the fans, and I think what they didn't do was take a risk for. They didn't take any risks because it was a Disney movie, and quite frankly, they didn't want to really play hardball, and they didn't, because I'm gonna spoil Endgame here, and this is by now such a common fact. It's just universally known. I'd say, as opposed to Luke Skywalker revealing, and I'm getting into spoilers here, revealing that his Darth Vader revealing to Luke that he is his father. So spoilers for Endgame. When Tony Stark dies at the end of the film, it was universally, acclaimed as just one of these great scenes. And for the time being, I Love You 3000, it's a huge moment. It just is. And honestly, I can get where the filmmakers were coming from. They had a massive success. They are the kings of the world. I mean, they beat James Cameron twice with Titanic and Avatar. And to be fair, Cameron had two up there as well. So, I mean, now the Russo brothers are just the kings with this highest grossing movie ever. And it just shows you that it's a really long, epic, galaxy spanning soap opera. And to be fair, I was very passionately raving about the first part of this film, Infinity War. I was very passionate about that when it came out, and I really loved what they did with it. I loved the scope. In fact, I thought the scope of that one was just so much more fun and juicy than what we have here. What we have here, it's just desolate, and it seems dreary and very cardboard and pre-planned. Infinity War is obviously pre-planned. The entire thing feels like a programmed computer cutscene, honestly, but it was fun, and I had fun with these characters because I grew up with them. So I thought Infinity War was cartoonish, and I loved the ending. I absolutely adored it. I was excited by it. I wasn't devastated. I was definitely very surprised. I think people weren't surprised. I was just surprised by how they executed it. And yeah, people were complaining that they all turned to dust at different times. That was stupid. But honestly, in a movie where so much is happening and you just can't call something like that stupid because there's so much going on. And I even was wondering, how are their clothes not disappearing? But they wrote that away. The Russo brothers are really smart guys. I mean, I cannot fault them. They are honestly brilliant, and so is Kevin Feige when it comes to telling the audience and showing them what they want to hear. They do a great job. They're magicians. The one thing I want to see, and it's honestly a little hypocritical of me to say this because I was just criticizing The Last Jedi. I just wanted to see some risks taken, because you could gamble. You could say the Infinity War ending was a gamble, but it wasn't, because you knew they were going to restore everyone, and then they just go on to what, cut Thanos' head off in the first act. Okay, I mean, he's not dead. There's trailers showing him. This is what Martin Scorsese was talking about, because I'm not going to rip on the movies for too long. They're just, theme parks. Tony Stark's death is really meaningless. And if, they did something for Black Widow, honestly, it would have been maybe more impactful. It feels like such a cartoon. You don't even see her funeral. It's just head honcho, RDJ. And, I mean, I love RDJ. He is such a beast. He's such a funny, charismatic leader in these films. He's been an inspiration to so many people, including me. I think he's just a wonderful guy. And I'm not criticizing any of this. I'm just saying that he's wonderful and that I love watching these films. I just want to see a Marvel movie that's dark, and that's why we have our Logans. That's why we have Deadpool. And to be honest, that's why they're there. And I think that Scorsese would appreciate a film like Logan. I mean, I don't know if he said anything about that, but that's a movie I saw and I disliked at first. But it usually seems that when I dislike a movie for it being slow or it being kind of cold and steely. You know, a teacher or a critic will always say, "Oh no, that was a masterpiece," and I say, "How are you attached to this?" Over time, I've gotten to get why some movies are like that. I don't know. Melodrama appeals to me. I like melodrama. The superhero melodrama is just ridiculous because it's too much and it's the same every single time. The same character beats. You know, woman leaves. It's just so stupid because they're superheroes and you see them fly around and shit. You just want to see them actually fight. You appreciate a good gritty movie like Logan eventually. I mean, just because it's real and it feels like the stakes are real. The first couple X-Men movies, even Days of Future Past, which was, I mean, I'm gonna review all these films, but Days of Future Past was a fantastic entry, and it just showed how artistry could really be. I think that was Bryan Singer, and Bryan Singer is now kind of faded away post Me Too movement. I think he can make a comeback, and I'm not saying in any way anything he did was great. I mean, his movies. I mean, he's done some really apparently appalling things in just from what I've heard. I really didn't research this, but I know people hated, absolutely loathed Bohemian Rhapsody and its cartoonish portrayal. But that's another thing that just shows with the mainstream movies right now. And I want to get onto it. I want to talk about a clip. There's a clip of Anthony Mackie. I'll include it in the link below, where Anthony Mackie just discusses how Hollywood movies are made for China and 16-year-olds. I'm gonna include this link, and I think you guys should really watch it because it is just a really important video showing what Hollywood is doing now and how they're just making movies for just for audiences. The Bohemian Rhapsody movie was strung up by a bunch of writers who just wanted to make a very generic and simple story and have it appeal, and it did. A lot of people love this movie. I honestly didn't have a large appreciation or attachment to this. I saw Rocket Man, and I also felt a similar way, but I thought that at least that had some kind of scenic design. It was like a Broadway show, and I always have to give a movie the benefit of the doubt. And I just said, it's trying to be a Broadway show, and it does a really good job of recreating that. With Bohemian Rhapsody, it just felt like you were going through the motions, and there was really no larger life attributed to it. The performances are really good. People criticize Rami Malek, and I will criticize him winning an Oscar for it, but I thought he was really good. I mean, I just don't think the movie is a masterclass of acting. He won Best Actor, and it's just really strange. I think Willem Dafoe should have won for At Eternity's Gate, which I didn't see. I just think Willem Dafoe should have won an Oscar, and Rami Malek won, which is I don't know. I really like Rami Malek, though, I gotta say. He is going to be the Bond villain. I'm really excited to see that. And he was in Mr. Robot, which I haven't seen. And I had this... I'm not going to spoil the show for you. I just found out that Mr. Roboto, the song, is featured in the last season of the show. And that just seemed eventual. And it's funny because I discovered that song... I'm going to sound like such an ass. Before that show. And I just thought, I just love that song, and I just always loved it. When I was a little kid, I would listen to it, and now I just want to watch Mr. Robot because I think I'd have a personal attachment to it. The show came out when I was a ninth grader in film camp, and I just remember seeing posters for it everywhere. And my teacher, Brian, would walk around with me. We went to shoot everywhere around the park downtown by Battery Park, and my friend was making a movie about his dad having an affair. We shot this. He had an Elvis song attached to it. We shot it in his dad's apartment. It must have been honestly based on a true story. I don't know. We were in ninth grade. He could have just been making it up. I just had fun with it. We were in the apartment. It was raining. We talked about Rune, Brie Larson, Game of Thrones. We walked back to the school. We brought back the camera equipment. At the end of the day, I went home. I took the train home, subway from South Ferry up, and I watched The Night of and Princess Bride or Mean Girls. I mean, that was my week. I was also writing a script that was kind of like True Romance at the time. But anyway, that's just me talking about ninth grade. And Mr. Robot, which is a show I just got to get around to seeing. But yeah, I want to get back to what I was saying about studio movies being watered down. I mean, there are really just no artsy movies in the large studio genre. Look at Ant Man. It was so much wasted potential. I actually had fun with it because it was really light. It was really breezy. It's a kids movie. It's a Disney movie. It was just fun because the concept is really cool. But I also just was really tired of seeing this. I had no desire to continue it. It was just very kind of lame, honestly. The thing with um, Edgar Wright is he almost directed Ant Man, but he didn't. And a lot of people want to see what the Edgar Wright Ant Man would look like because, I mean, he is a visionary. He has a movie called Last Night in Soho coming out, and I, for one, want to see that movie. I want to see it because not only does it have Anya Taylor Joy, but it's going to be a thriller. Edgar Wright hasn't done that, and he's kind of like Wes Anderson. So I look at it like if Baby Driver, um, had a baby with a horror movie. It's it's cool because Wes Anderson is American, and I just don't get that vibe from him. I think a lot of people probably feel this way. He has such a distinct kind of European Victorian era vibe just to his movies, and I just don't picture him as this guy from Texas. And I watched actually some, and I have to finish it. It's on Crackle of his debut film Bottle Rocket, and I just have to watch that because it clearly did not have the budget of his later films. I watched Rushmore, and I loved Rushmore. I thought it was really brilliant, funny, fastly paced, and tightly knit. Was Seymour Cassell the father in that? He may have been because I wouldn't know this, but um, we just talk about that in film school. We just talk about that a lot. So it's it's just something Paul. I mean, I talked about this in my first episode. Paul will always talk about Seymour Cassell and John Cassavetes. I'm sorry, guys. I was distracted momentarily, and I know you probably noticed that. I got a text from my friend Nick, who's going to be our guest. He's saying that I texted him a lot, and he said that he's been watching Breaking Bad, basically. So we're going to talk about that probably, and I'll get back to him in a little. But yeah, look at Breaking Bad. Actually, it's a perfect example, and I'll talk about that. That isn't watered down for TV yet. It has a very intriguing style to it. That's why people love it, and it still has pretty simplistic dialogue. I won't lie. Watch Better Call Saul, where they say, "Are you in the game?" And he says, "She's in the game." My dad was like riveting during that scene. He was looking over at me so nervously, and I could tell, yeah, it's hinting that the characters are entering a dangerous situation. But that's just something about the show that it gets it across to viewers in such a simple way. But the show itself is so brilliant that it makes up for all of that. I said this. My teacher criticized Paul criticized The Dark Knight, and he said terrible, very boring, and very generic. And I just said, well, Paul, the movie is um, Batman. What do you expect them to be talking about? Like, you know, Greek poetry? I don't know. Ben McKenzie said that it's a Greek tragedy, and I agree. Gotham. When I went to a panel, he said it's a Greek tragedy, and I completely agreed. It is. It's it's just a sad story. Gotham is in no way that type of epic tragedy, but it can be done to that effect. There's a Matt Reeves Batman film that's on hold, and let's talk about this because we're talking about studios. That's actually the common thread right now of this podcast. Let's not lose it. It's artistry for now. So this Batman movie, there's never been like a grounded, gritty detective noir. I mean, The Dark Knight is probably the most gritty there is, but there's never been one that's really rooted in the detective side, and I'd just say 100%. Because Batman Begins and The Dark Knight was split into two parts. Those are on, and The Dark Knight Returns. That trilogy is honestly the closest to being dark and gritty, and I give it a ton of respect for being close to the comics and having a really real world atmosphere. It felt great, and Nolan completely brought it to life. that's one of the best things about Nolan. He is so real and so cool. He should direct a James Bond film. He's got that suave ability about him, that just his style to his films. I love thinking about that. Uh, but yeah, Nolan should just do that because he's great, and yeah. Sorry, guys, I just left to take a snack break, and also to get my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Is a common, just fell into the keyboard, common snack in the studio. I've been yelled at my high school radio years for eating. Let me tell you really quickly. Some of my first memories, aside from eating sandwiches and getting kicked out, which has happened. Mr. Claff has just seen the food and he said, "Just get out." It was awful, awful. This was senior year, and I completely regretted it. I felt like an idiot. I think my friend Ethan probably felt that too because we were doing a show and I got kicked out. So my first year doing radio, I actually had a notebook I got from Comic Con which showed The Dark Knight Returns on the cover, and I had all my notes in there. Now I just have some notes in these little notebooks that I got from my mom, like from her office. My dad brought this one home a while ago. And yeah, I just have not changed my setup all that much. I just figure do a podcast, talk about what's on the mind, and just make it happen. So we talked about Anthony Mackie and artistry. Sorry, my iPad is dying. Just keep my elbow in the frame so I can get this charger. And it's unplugged, ladies and gentlemen. Let's just look at the charger, by the way, because we all know they're going to change. Steve Jobs is going to make another one. He's in heaven right now commanding God, as the Simpsons have said. So, yeah. This is the iPhone charger. It's going to probably be, like, portable, and we're going to have them in our heads in 10 years. Or you're just going to be able to have, like, through the internet, through the air, electronic internet. You won't ever need hardwired cellular devices or wires again. You'll just need everything portable, wireless. Last time we're using one of these, probably. I'm kidding. Remember we had big chargers? Those were honestly fine. I remember I had an iPhone or an iPod Touch that had a wide charging hole at the bottom. I'm messaging our guest because I'll tell him we're going to have him on soon. It's good to just talk. When's a good time for you? Sent. All these game apps I've never used. Let's look at them. Photos, store, stickers, images, Animoji, Digital Touch, music, Reason, Mobile, Headspace, 8-Ball Pool, Venmo, Cash App, Pixar, Tubi. These are all apps I have. Target, iFunny, Reddit, Dropbox, YouTube, more. Yeah, Tubi is a great app, by the way. I'm not really supposed to, I guess, endorse, but I just want to because I use it all the time, and I'm hoping maybe they'll hear this and think, I mean, I don't know, give me some shares of the stock. But Tubi is just great. I love it. I use it all the time to watch movies. There's only a couple commercials. I just feel like I'm entitled to tell you that because Netflix has no commercials. But this has no cost. You just buy it. I mean, you just download it on the App Store for free. Sit through like 2 commercials. You can get up, go to the bathroom. You can grab a snack. I mean, look at me. I constantly snack and constantly drinking the water. Perfect opportunity to do that. It's honestly the perfect experience to watch a movie. I mean, I honestly sometimes am so engaged, I just like to sit through it. But it's just perfect app. Anthony Mackie, I just love this guy. And I love what he said because it's true that movies don't really take risks anymore. He said Stranger Things is Goonies. He said it like 20 times, and that's so true. I've only seen the first whole season of Stranger Things, and I treated season 2, episode 1 like it was an event. It came out the same day I took the ACT. I was about to try and remember what the whole thing was called, but I don't fucking remember. Advanced correlation test, advanced coloring toenails. I don't know or care. I'm just bullshitting. ACT is just something I took, and I actually felt really good after taking it. I remember I'd seen Kingsman like a couple weeks before because I did not study, and I got a 27 on it. It's not great, but a 27 out of 36. If you don't study and you just watch Kingsman, it really shows you that you could just take an exam. I also went into the transgender bathroom for the first time after, just to explore and just experiment with it. I'd never been in there, and no one was in the school. You're just taking an ACT, and it was my school, and the transgender bathroom was something I'd never dared to go in because I was afraid of getting caught by a teacher. And I went in, and I'm just like, yeah, I'm in here. It's just a small memory. It's something about Stranger Things, though. You just look at it, and you look at the quality and how everything is a joke. It's like a Marvel movie. There's no risks being taken. We could talk about this all day, but I'm going to move on because I do want to talk more about Marvel movies and get into detail actually with some of them. But I'll save that for another episode. I just want to do an overview on this whole generic topic because that's important. I think just to realize where it kind of lies. Simpsons has been accused of this, but honestly, I just think it's lost its fun touch. The Simpsons is still doing these really smart, spoofy episodes. They just aren't as relatable or seemingly intelligent because they've done the same concept over and over. Homer's an idiot. Homer is going to be not aware of this new smart technology and he's just going to think of something in the past. You're just so used to this formula that it doesn't click, but I think the writers still do a great job adjusting to, what is new and what's modern and happening. South Park is also another good example of this. They're great. I could talk about South Park and praise South Park any day. Yeah, I'm just looking at movies now that are delayed because of COVID-19, and that's a lot of movies. Um, anyway, we were talking about generic stuff though, and I think Family Guy is pretty generic. I love Family Guy. I love where it came from. I just think now it's taking such a dull route. And I guess Seth MacFarlane isn't present during most of the writing because he's there to do the voices, but it's just so dull. And it's funny, I guess most of the new subplots do involve Stewie and they do involve Brian and Peter, but all of and Seth does so many characters, but it's just been so kind of elementary and not as just sharp or even rude and fast-pacedly rude as they used to do. Because that's just a crude show that will do these fast-paced, hard, mean jokes, but at least it had that energy to it, where it would just show Peter going into um, the laundromat, and there would be the Asian clerk, and they would do that to death. I mean, they would just do it so hard and so funny that you just saw they were really bashing it. It wasn't just kind of light. They do all these jokes now. They're just so light. It's like they make fun of a Jewish guy and they'll just leave it and they'll just move on. I mean, they're just very cheap, lazy throwaway gags now. TV has kind of gotten to this point where it feels like that. It just feels like it's kind of it's been light. That's just Family Guy though. So there's another movie that's pretty light, and that is Fantastic. Pretty big transition. I'm going to do a whole episode talking about Fantastic, but the Fantastic Four is going to get a reboot through the MCU. And if you just think about it, it's going to be the same story. It's going to be the fifth origin story. The fifth. There's been the Fantastic Four, 1994. This was unreleased. This was directed by Roger Corman. There are copies of it on YouTube. You can see copies of it there. And it was basically just a pretty poorly it's not even poorly shot because the quality of it now is so bad, but the story of it is honestly pretty decent when you compare it to the comics. It's not a bad film. It's just dated really dated, and the effects are not that great. The Thing even looks better than Fantastic's thing, though. Whatever Fantastic was trying to do, it just did not do. Todd McCarthy said it was a 100-minute trailer for a movie that never happens, and that's exactly what it is. It is just you're constantly waiting for this big fight or this big climax, and even when the climax is happening, it's so awful and just not non-eventful. They're in this dark oblivion of rocks and blue light, which seems to be in every movie. But this, it's funny. It's not even Suicide Squad where you're in a city and there's this cloud. They're literally in the cloud of blue light. They're just in this awful darkness. It was very hard to tell what was happening. Like if they were sucking up the city, if Doctor Doom was done terribly. There was one scene that's great where he wakes up and he Rogue One Vader's everyone. He just burns all these cops' heads like to crisps. He looked cool. That was actually not that bad. I could see Josh Trank just wanting to do that one scene. Sandwich hits hard when you're working. It really gives you energy. I'd make sandwiches before I go to bed. I'm not gonna lie. Van Forstick is just so contrived. I'm not gonna criticize Josh Trank though. He did Contagion. Oh my! I can't believe I just said that. He did Chronicle. They both start with C's. I mean, I think that's fair. You have the letter O in them predominantly in the middle. So, no, he did Chronicle, and that was just great. And I feel like Steven Soderbergh would be kind of proud of what he does, because what he does is he's only done two movies, but they're both kind of gritty, both kind of different takes on the superhero genre, and now he's doing an Al Capone biopic. I'd love to see what his next movie is after Van Forstick, and he has Tom Hardy starring in it of all people, who is just one of the best actors working today. You couldn't do any better. That was the end of the sandwich. Stephen Knight got Hardy in Peaky Blinders. And he got him in Locke, and people love Locke. I mean, it's such a film teacher movie. My teacher loved Locke. He said, brilliant. And I remember when I watched it on my laptop on this bed over here. I was very mesmerized by it, just by, the hauntingness of it. It wasn't, you see it in the theaters, it's probably more creepy. Maybe for an adult, it's more creepy. I watched it when I was pretty young, too. I watched a lot of movies when I was really, really little. I watched Bye Bye Birdie when I was in sixth grade in a Puerto Rico hotel room. In my parents' friend's bedroom, we kind of gathered by the foot of one bed and just watched it. The parents just wanted to go to sleep. They were probably so pissed. They were just like, get the fuck out. Just one of them, the dad, most likely. Anyway. You know who's a cool celebrity? Johnny Depp. The man just got Instagram, and to be honest, I just deleted Instagram. I told you guys this. It's part of my quarantine rule. I'm going to delete it. Johnny Depp is uploading all these videos from his home. It just makes me jealous, because I think he's so cool. But I also think that I'm jealous he just has access to the videos. I mean, I can do this. I can stream, but YouTube took down all my old videos because I published about Uncut Gems and Watchmen, just clips of them to show my appreciation. They took it down, and I only did about 3 or 4. Awful stuff. But yeah, we're gonna get into this review for Fan Forstick another time, because this isn't really a review. This is just talking about generic movies. But I want to finish out kind of my talk about generic movies by saying I have an appreciation for artists. Paul Thomas Anderson is not the type of guy. He's honestly, it's above him I would think, in his mind to do a superhero movie, just because with everything he's done, he would not go to doing a Captain America film. I would love to see it. I would love to see him take his own shot at it, and I would love to see critics um, come rushing up to him as they did when he cast Adam Sandler. Because honestly, that was a pretty ballsy move, and it wasn't any different than film that Anderson would have made. He really was just doing his thing, and he just happened to cast Adam Sandler, and it was a really good choice. He really worked for the role. Anderson wanted an introverted guy, and Sandler played it so well, and he probably came across as very relatable and also fun, and not fun at all, but funny. Specifically, just funny because you can kind of put yourself in those shoes, and you see Sandler in these other roles, and it's a very different character. It's a really great role. I think it's one of Sandler's best roles. When you put that next to Howard Ratner, they're both really good roles. I'm going to try to see just right now if I can remember the 5 nominees from last year's Oscars, because it was such a big year. It was Leo DiCaprio. I remember being disappointed by like 2 of the nominations. All right, Leo, Jonathan Pryce, Antonio Banderas, and I don't know, man. I always forget the nominations. You just have to go by what's nominated for Best Picture, and that'll tell you. It's just one of those things you forget. An American Pickle was canceled and is now set to be released on HBO Max. I'm so excited for that because Seth Rogen is hilarious. Joaquin Phoenix, duh, he won. And Adam Driver in Marriage Story was also really good. I remember even thinking it was between Adam Driver and Joaquin Phoenix, but I guess, they just gave it to The Walk. It would be funny if Adam Driver won, but honestly, it was worth it. Joaquin never is going to get, not never, he just was in the spotlight a ton for this. He's still in his prime. I think giving it to um, Adam Driver, Adam Driver can get one later in life. He's not a lot younger. He's like 10 years younger though, and Adam Driver's a really impressive story. He said he just enlisted for the Marines because he was working at McDonald's or something, living in his parents' basement. He just wanted to do something, and look at him now. He is Kylo Ren. He's an Academy Award nominated actor twice, and he's amazing. Adam Driver's an amazing performer. He's really real. I was actually so disappointed, and again, we're going to probably just do we watch Rise of the Skywalker, and we just talk about it. That'll be brilliant. I'd love to do that. But he was great in Rise of the Skywalker, and he was great in all of them, but he just had nothing to work with in that last movie. I was completely shut off by every action those characters made. It just didn't feel like something anyone would do. I was watching the screen in disbelief as people went from lovers to fighters, as people I thought were dead came back. It was just a shit show of awful ideas that ended up feeling like a 2-part episode conclusion to some really bad show. It was awful that they've taken the series to this place. But yeah, with that, let's move on to our guest, because he's a really cool guy, and he's someone who's seen a lot of these films. He saw Bye Bye Birdie with me. He is someone who I played Red Dead Redemption at his house. I've grown up with this kid. We've gone on vacations together to North Carolina, to the North Fork, out on Long Island, the Outer Banks. We've gone to Puerto Rico. We've gone to Mexico, on all these all-inclusive resorts where you stay in these beautiful luxury resorts, and you get all this buffet food. It's like being in paradise. And I was only 11 when I went there, and I remember having some of the best times of my life. I remember discovering Twin Peaks at some of these resorts in Mexico City. Actually, we went in April. Yeah, and I had no idea what Twin Peaks really was, except for I had some of it spoiled. I knew about doppelgangers and Bob, and then I would actually watch the series that summer and get it all in. So even if you have something spoiled for you, I would still go and watch it because that show changed me, and I completely forgot that I had it spoiled because then I had The Return, which just shattered what you could do with TV. That is a pivotal moment. The Return, for me at least, it inspired me to make this short film that I'm gonna re-upload on this channel. It's called Northwest Passage. I made it the summer Twin Peaks aired. I made it, I think, right in the middle, like in July, and it was just clearly inspired by Twin Peaks: The Return. And I want to make another one to just contribute that, but before I can, we're gonna get into the celebrity guest interview. It's not a celebrity, I'm sorry. It's my friend Nick, who's just a great kid. Known him forever. He's very funny, very cool. And last time I actually saw Nick, I was watching The Hot Box, written by Jonathan Demme, which is a women in prison exploitation movie. It's so. I mean, I actually thought it was really fun. I love movies like that, and I discovered it on Tubi. So that's another Tubi shout out for you. That was probably my first Tubi movie, and it was before the quarantine, guys. I watched this movie, I'd say, really early March or February, and we were at this Mexican restaurant, and it was packed. Me and Nick were sitting at this table. The waiter came over to us. There were like two waiters. It was just packed. I'm gonna keep talking about this in awe because just for a while now, I don't think anyone will be in restaurants. I don't think anyone will be, out at movie theaters sitting together. It's just gonna be a while before people are comfortable being close. And honestly, I'm so glad about some of these things. I mean, personal space, man. But as far as being in the city is gonna totally lose. I mean, I think people are gonna move out just because that's where the virus spreads. People with little kids don't want to live there. And if you live in the city, you have money. So Andrew's coming in. Imagine I start broadcasting from an apartment in New York. We'll see what happens. But yeah, things are totally different. Things are different after the pandemic, and it's just interesting to see what happens. Um, Two guys I want to talk about, and I'm not going to talk about them now, but the Safdie brothers. They must be thriving. I think a lot of people are thriving. Filmmakers, I'm just saying artists, because there's a whole theory with artists that they work better alone, and they work better when they're just able to concentrate and make art. And you can do that. Look at David Lynch in a recent interview where the most popularized headline is such a mass media thing. It's so stupid. Everyone was saying David Lynch has no interest in Dune, which is like, who gives a shit? Of course he doesn't. It's a movie he worked on, and the studio took it from him. Whatever. That's the thing. David Lynch did a blockbuster, and he doesn't want to talk about it. That's what people care about. But David Lynch personally has been thriving in quarantine. Uh, and I just wanted to talk briefly about people like the Safdie brothers who made all these creative home movies in New York City. And this is the epicenter now. And I just think that if you're at the epicenter and you could go out and film, I honestly advise everyone to be careful. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying there's a lot of there's history out there, and it's really cool to capture it. And I think people are safely capturing this stuff. People are doing it from their own homes. It's really cool to see these images, and I think if you can somehow safely share images, I'd love to see them. And I just want to see how people are working to get through this, because people are taking all different measures. People are doing all sorts of things, and it's cool to just see the many, many different approaches being made. You hear that? That's the blender downstairs. They're probably making a protein smoothie or something. Oh, guys, I have one of these really frustrating moles here. Like Edward Snowden has that mole. I got one too. I don't even know what it is, but it's really bothering me. I just want to rip it off. Yeah, that's the feeling you get sometimes. There's a movie called Swallow, by the way, starring Haley Bennett. I'll just shout it out because it was a beautiful movie. Anytime I see a film that looks really good, I just give it high praise. It was good. And yeah, even the ending, I wasn't like obsessed with it. I thought it was really good though. Really, it got weird, definitely, but it was a great film. There's always some like indie films that come out and they just generate a lot of buzz. It takes a lot of effort to make a good indie film. Green Room got a lot of buzz. I absolutely adored Green Room. I saw that when I was in North Carolina, in the comfort of my bed, and I loved that because there was something very satisfying about that, and also I watched it at an age that I could appreciate just the simple revenge factor. Maybe watching that now, I would appreciate it. I just would have less patience with it. That's the honest truth. When I watched Blue Ruin, I had so much patience, and I didn't like the film. It would grow on me now, just because it was pretty well made, but it was purposely made to leave you angry. I was reading an article on this saying that the movie is built to, twist your conventions or what you think will happen in the movie, and it does. Another movie I watched recently that I just want to mention because I've heard about this film for a while, and I can really sit through these, and it just says something. If you can sit through something sad, because I can. I haven't really been through anything. I'm actually a pretty lucky kid. Have not had anything really bad happen to me, and I'm so grateful for that. And I just love every minute I'm with my family, and respect them and wish them well. And I just love everyone who's nice to me and a good person. And I'm just mentioning this because I saw this movie. It was so depressing. It just makes you appreciate life. Dear Zachary is the movie, and it is as impactful as they say it is. It's funny because I kind of knew what happened. I just said it's funny, and that's terrible. That's absolutely terrible because it's not funny. But I saw it and I knew what happened, and I'd forgotten actually. So then I saw the movie, and it really left an impact even more. It's just go see the movie. It's good filmmaking though. That's the thing. There's a critic, David Ehrlich. I want to talk about him. Maybe I'll even interview him one day. Maybe I'll interview David. But I like talking about David because he's just total. Just the way he critiques a movie, it's very out there, and he just always will see movies and give these very long, fluid reviews and opinions. And sometimes I disagree. I completely disagreed with his opinion on this one, where he gave it 3 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd and just said it was not that well made. It was about filmmaking, and I think it was an important. That's my mom talking about the eye doctor for my dad, which I'm driving him to tomorrow. Anyway, we're going to get to the celebrity guest soon. I realize I've been holding back on the celebrity guest, and I want to move on from this sad topic and just get on to fun stuff. But no, it's great filmmaking. That documentary I just recommended, and I'll recommend any other good documentaries. There's one called The Bridge on YouTube that is just... I see why people hate it, because it's really morally low and follows a camera crew filming people jumping to their deaths at the Golden Gate Bridge, and I really see why people have a problem with it. I did not particularly like the movie because I understood what was going on. I think you could tell with the movie. There's also another film that I didn't particularly like called Bully, and I was very polarized when I first saw this. I enjoyed the beginning. I enjoyed what it was telling me, but then, honestly, after a certain point, you can tell the movie is not going to change or turn its message. It becomes a really somber 2-hour mediation on the same thing. The same thing, that bullying is bad. It never offers a solution. And I've often seen that being the number one criticism of the movie, but beyond that, it just doesn't do anything to further develop the problem it already presents. It just continues to show examples of it. And it's upsetting, and it doesn't offer any help or really show anything. It's just exploitation. It doesn't offer an eye into people who are trying to make a difference or what they're doing. Sure, you see the parents who have suffered and their activism, but it just, there's no more correlations. I can talk forever about this movie. There's no correlations made between like the other psychological problems, because there's so much that goes into this, and they really just try to oversimplify it into one topic, and you can't do that. You can't do that with bullying. There's a lot that goes into it, and it isn't just teachers start it, because I've had my own personal issues with bullying. I think I've mentioned this in elementary school, and I've had teachers handle it horribly. I mean, before I could even remember some situations, I remember kids, just the way they pick on you, and you get in trouble too because you were accused of starting it. You both get called out of recess. That happened to me all the time. And I mean, it's just the teacher's job to kind of settle it. And honestly, the kids could just try and, relax. But I remember my friend freaking out that he wasn't going to have his recess, so I had to go tell the teacher, could we go play? She let us. That's a worthy discussion to talk about bullying in schools and how the school system sucks at handling it at times. My principal once said that kids kill themselves. And I remember hearing this, it must have been in fourth grade, and I just remember saying, like, is this really happening? Because some kid pushed me down and then I called him a name that I was being told, I could cause someone to kill themselves. It's just absolutely disruptive to the school system. It's my opinion. Yeah, let's move on to lighter topics. We're gonna have my guest come on, Nick, and you guys are gonna love this kid. A lot of fun, a lot of energy in him. I'm just kidding about the energy, but he has a lot of contained energy. Very just fun, nice, easy to get a rise out of this kid. So stay tuned for my interview segment. Nick.
Oh, not here.
Oh, what is up, my guy?
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good.
Have you been playing Red Dead a lot in that basement? I see you down there.
I'm playing GTA right now.
Oh, GTA is awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, when did you get Grand Theft Auto? Have you had that for a while?
I got it like a week ago.
Oh, that's
So,
good.
yeah.
Your parents let you get it
Yeah.
because of quarantine?
Probably, yeah.
Ah, okay. So, have you been keeping busy through that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been playing video games. I want to get Red Dead and I want to get The Last of Us, but that's that's it. I mean, I hear The Last of Us is a really good story.
I've never played it, but I want to get it.
You should get that. Have you played
Yeah.
Spider-Man?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, Spider-Man's good.
Nice. I know, I can't get invested in, I don't know. I just can't get invested in some video games. It depends.
Yeah.
Red Dead I like because it's open world. GTA I like.
Yeah, Red Dead the story mode's really good.
How far are you into GTA?
I've been playing the online a lot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't been bored, but I've been getting, like losing things to do. So I'm trying to just think of some things to do. And I was thinking of like making a movie, because why not? Especially now. It's hard because you have no access to people, but I have so much time now.
Yeah.
You could also just draw or paint.
Yeah, that's it.
Or just go outside and work out. Oh, it's Nick's house. I'm usually only here on Christmas Eve. How's the family?
They're good.
Everyone's good?
Yeah.
Keeping busy? Good.
Yeah.
You in your room now?
Yeah, I just went upstairs because my mom came downstairs.
Nice. Oh, could I see your room really quick?
Oh, yeah. It probably looks the same as like last time you were here.
Does it have a bunk bed?
Actually, no. That's probably the only difference.
Oh, I remember there was a bunk bed. Oh,
It's just
wow.
a bed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I remember you used to have a deck, too. Do you still have that?
No, it's an office now.
Oh, yeah, I remember. Yeah, you made that into an office.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man.
Yeah.
Looks good, that room. Baseball. Jake has one of those.
Yeah.
Have you been, like, social distancing with friends and stuff, like, outside?
Yeah, I haven't seen them in a while. I've just been playing video games with them.
That's a good move. I've been walking.
Yeah.
I mean, I just take some quick walks with friends. It's like I was gonna go on a bike ride later today. I go on long bike rides around Port.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
You started Breaking Bad. Did you start it or are you like watching it?
Yeah, I'm in season 3 today.
Nice.
Yeah.
Do you know
It's
the show?
really good.
Do you know the show Better Call Saul?
Yeah, it's like a spinoff.
I love that show.
Okay.
Yeah, it's good that you're watching Breaking Bad, but I recommend watching that after. It's just so good.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah, I
light.
think I was gonna do that.
It's like when we actually went on a trip, I forgot where. I think it was Puerto Rico. They announced it, and I had just finished Breaking Bad, and it was so weird because I was thinking, how can you make a spinoff of a great show? And it actually started out being pretty funny, and it started out being really just everything was kind of a joke, and it was smart. It was so smart because you know how Saul is, right? Bob Odenkirk.
Yeah.
He's just funny, and he always makes Jesse and Walt kind of like in a funny situation. So they did that, but now it's in season 5, and it just ended, and it's getting really dark, and it's good. And a lot of people complained because it was kind of, slow up to that point, but it's all about developing the characters. And that's how Breaking Bad is. I haven't watched Breaking Bad in so long, but I know it's great. And I remember it.
Yeah. I'm assuming that it takes place like before Breaking Bad, though, right?
It does. It takes place, I think starting in the early 2000s, and it's probably going to lead right up to the beginning of the show. There's only one more season, and everything is delayed though, dude. It stinks.
Yeah, it's annoying.
Do you have anything you're like waiting for? Because what am I waiting for? Like TV shows, or you don't really care? Nothing's bothered for you?
I saw the first season of Outer Banks, and it was kind of good, I guess.
Your mom must have told my mom, because she said we have to watch that, and now I'm thinking about that show.
Yeah, it's a good show.
Is it a mystery show?
Yeah.
There's a lot of that's on the CW, right?
Well, it's on Netflix.
Netflix, yeah.
I think it's a Netflix original, actually. I don't know.
Yeah, everything on Netflix, it's funny, it goes right there. And now with Disney Plus, it's weird because, the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., that's on Netflix, but it's a Marvel show. I've never seen that. And it originally started on ABC. I just want to watch that show. There's so many things I could be watching.
I haven't seen that yet.
Is there anything besides Breaking Bad you watched? Up to...
Not recently.
Yeah.
No, probably Game of Thrones was the last show I watched before I started Breaking Bad.
And you disliked that finale, right?
Yeah. I thought the whole show was good up until that.
The last season or the finale?
Just the whole last season, in general.
Nice.
Yeah.
It's a bummer that they ended it, but I honestly have yet to like really see that. So I'm gonna probably watch that during quarantine.
Yeah. It's definitely worth it. There's so many good episodes, it doesn't really matter. It's just the last season's bad. It's still definitely worth doing.
Got it. There's been so many like sports cancellations too. There was a SpongeBob movie that was supposed to come out, but now it's being delayed till like the summer, which is and everything's gonna come out on video, which is fine because you can just buy it on demand. I watched all the James Bond movies, and I just know. Do you have a box set of that in your house?
Yeah, I don't have all of them, but I have I think the first 6.
Yeah.
And I have a few others too. Probably half of them. Yeah.
I know there's so many. I ordered a whole set of them just because I wanted to watch all of them. But only some. It can only get you through quarantine for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, I was just wondering, how's Pelham? Is it good? You're just staying home. You going outside, taking walks.
We're doing walks sometimes, but that's really it.
And just around your neighborhood.
Yeah.
All right, good man, good. Well, I'm gonna probably take a bike ride. So I recommend doing the same because they're both really. I don't know. It's just when you're bored, You could just go out, and I go so far now, like to Main Street. I would never go as far as I go, but there's nowhere else to go, so you just feel like it. All right. Well, Nick, thank you for speaking, and I will talk to you later, bro.
All right, see ya.
Peace out, brother.
Bye.
Bye. Oh well, everyone, that was my meeting. That was Nick. He's a very, told you, man of many words, collectively calm, and I am gonna go for bike ride because it's 5:22. Jake, you off your Hebrew school call yet? No response. My brother's on Hebrew school call. I hear his door opening, and I figure he'll come in. You know what? We can make the show portable for the last, minute of the show. We'll up it from the studio and head on over to Jake. Hello. Well, we were just finishing up the show, and after an interview, and we were just finishing it up. Any words?
The hoop for me?
This net, everything. Why?
Just the hoop, because I'm throwing this out, but I don't want to throw the hoop out.
Oh, it's kind of a lot of work. You know what? Leave it in the garage, and I'll do so. Okay. Nice little acting like you have problems.
Dad?
Anyway, thank you guys for tuning in to this interview. We're just going to return to stationary mode really quick. I want to finish the interview where we started. Yeah, this has been great. Absolutely great. Thank you, Nick, for joining us. So, yeah, stay tuned for my next podcast. Peace out.